It was a bitterly cold day, the kind where even the lightest breeze felt like it could cut through your bones. The small town's main street was bustling with the usual mix of people, shoppers, business owners, and tourists, all trying to go about their day. Amidst the crowd, a woman stood by the window of a high-end boutique, her face pressed against the glass. She was clearly homeless, with ragged clothes and unkempt hair that tangled in the wind. Her eyes glimmered with longing, gazing at the pristine clothing that seemed so far out of reach. Inside, the store was warm, filled with soft lighting and the scent of fresh perfume. The man who owned it was leaning against the counter, dressed in a crisp suit, his hair perfectly styled. He watched the woman from the corner of his eye as she lingered near the door. His expression was one of indifference, but there was a hint of annoyance, as if her presence was something he could do without. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He pushed himself off the counter and made his way over to the door. With a cold, almost rehearsed smile, he opened it and motioned for the woman to leave. "Can't you see this is a store for customers, not for people like you?" he said sharply, his voice cutting through the chilly air. The woman blinked, taken aback by the harsh words. She opened her mouth to say something, but quickly shut it, as though the weight of the world had suddenly fallen on her shoulders. Without a word, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd, the door shutting behind her with a soft but final click. Inside the store, the man went back to his position at the counter, his face already turning back to its neutral, almost arrogant expression. He didn't think twice about the incident. It was just another part of his day, another inconvenience he could easily dismiss. Weeks passed, and the man barely thought about the homeless woman again. His life continued as usual. Meetings, sales, the occasional visit to his favorite restaurants. Business was good, and he liked the feeling of control, the satisfaction of knowing that everything was exactly how he wanted it. But one afternoon, while walking back to his store from a meeting, something caught his eye, a billboard towering over the city, flashing the face of a woman in vibrant colors. He paused mid-step, his heart suddenly skipping a beat. The face on the billboard was unmistakable. It was her. The same woman, the one he had kicked out of his store. Her face was now plastered on an advertisement for a high-end clothing brand. Her flawless skin and confident gaze a stark contrast to the ragged appearance he had seen only weeks ago. The billboard was massive, and her image seemed to shine brighter than everything else around it. The caption beneath it read, "The face of elegance and success, coming soon to your city." His first instinct was disbelief. How could this woman, someone he had dismissed so carelessly, be the face of a brand like this? The woman who had appeared so broken, so invisible just a short time ago? He shook his head, thinking it was some sort of mistake or coincidence. But as he stood there, the realization slowly sank in. She wasn't just some random person, she had transformed into something entirely different. In that moment, something shifted within him. The feelings of superiority, the dismissive attitude, started to crumble as he watched the woman's face on the billboard. There was something hauntingly beautiful about her, something that struck him to his core. He couldn't look away, and his heart began to race as he wondered just who she really was. That was when he noticed a small text beneath her name. Founder of Sequoia Clothing, revolutionizing fashion, one step at a time. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Founder? She had built an empire, one that he had unknowingly rejected. He had no idea what to do with this new knowledge, but it gnawed at him as he walked back to his store, his mind reeling with questions. How could he have been so blind? And more importantly, what would she think of him now? The next few days were a blur for the man. Every time he passed the billboard, the image of the woman stayed with him. Her face haunted him in a way that was unsettling. He couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way he had treated her, the way he had brushed her off without a second thought. And yet, here she was, on top of the world, with a business he couldn't even dream of building. He found himself obsessing over the details of the brand she had created, trying to learn everything he could. Sequoia Clothing was now one of the most talked-about names in the fashion industry. It was praised for its inclusivity, its emphasis on ethical fashion, and its stunning designs that were inspired by real people, not just runway models. The company had an aura of authenticity that seemed to shine through every piece they produced. The man couldn't help but feel a deep, gnawing sense of shame every time he read about her success. He had dismissed her without knowing anything about her life, her journey. All he had seen was a woman who didn't fit his idea of success. He had judged her, underestimated her, and now she was soaring while he remained stuck in the same old routine. One afternoon, as he sat at his desk, a notification popped up on his phone. A press release about a charity event that Sequoia Clothing was hosting to support homeless communities. The event was set to be held in his city, and it was to be a grand affair, with top influencers and celebrities in attendance. The woman's name was front and center as the host, and her words echoed through the release. "I believe everyone deserves a chance to change their story, just as I was given a chance. No one should be forgotten." It was like a punch to his chest. How could she say that? How could she extend such compassion to people like him, the ones who had treated her with disdain? He couldn't ignore the pull any longer. He had to meet her, to apologize, to make things right. But even as the thought crossed his mind, he knew it wouldn't be easy. She was no longer just a woman on the street. She was a force in the world now, and he had no idea how to even begin to approach someone who had risen so far above him. But he couldn't let the chance slip away. Not again. He made a decision. He would attend the charity event, find her, and face the consequences of his actions, no matter how much it scared him. Maybe it was a long shot, but he had to try. The night of the charity event arrived, and the man found himself standing in the lobby of an upscale hotel, surrounded by glitz and glamour. It was a world completely different from the one he knew, and he felt out of place among the celebrities, influencers, and well-dressed guests. The air was thick with chatter, laughter, and the clink of champagne glasses. His eyes scanned the room, searching for the woman, the face on the billboard, the founder of Sequoia Clothing. He felt a knot in his stomach. What was he even supposed to say to her? How could he possibly apologize for what he had done? She had every reason to hate him, to dismiss him as just another arrogant businessman, and yet, there he was, hoping for a chance at redemption. Then, like a flash, he saw her. She was standing near the stage, talking to a group of people, her confident posture and radiant smile commanding the room. She was nothing like the woman he had kicked out of his store. This woman exuded power, grace, and intelligence. She was the very picture of success, and the man couldn't tear his eyes away from her. As he moved closer, his heart raced in his chest. She was surrounded by a few of her employees and a couple of media personalities. Her laughter echoed softly through the crowd, and her presence seemed to light up the entire space. She looked perfect, and he felt small and insignificant in comparison. But as he took another step, one of her employees caught sight of him and immediately walked over. "Excuse me," the woman said, her tone polite but guarded. "Are you looking for someone?" The man hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. But before he could respond, the woman he had been searching for turned her head. Her eyes locked with his, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. There was no recognition in her gaze at first. She simply looked at him with the same professional composure that she showed to everyone else in the room. But then, as the seconds ticked by, something shifted. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of recognition slowly appearing. The man's heart skipped a beat. She knew who he was, and then, just as quickly as the recognition appeared, she masked it with a polite, almost distant smile. "Is there something I can help you with?" she asked, her voice cool and controlled. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The years of arrogance, the way he had so carelessly dismissed her, it all rushed back in that instant, and he was paralyzed by the weight of his own guilt. She waited for a response, the silence stretching between them, and he knew in that moment that he had to speak. But what could he say that would undo the damage he had caused? The man's throat tightened as he tried to find the right words. Every thought felt jumbled, every apology inadequate. How could he possibly make up for the way he had treated her? He knew he couldn't undo the past, but he had to try. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what I did. The way I treated you when you were outside my store, it was wrong, and I regret it deeply." Her expression remained neutral, but he could see something flicker in her eyes, something soft, though it was quickly hidden. She didn't immediately respond, and for a long, painful moment, the man wondered if she would just walk away, if she would leave him standing there with nothing but his guilt. But then, to his surprise, shook a small step forward, her gaze softening ever so slightly. "You're sorry?" she asked, her voice now more curious than cold. "Why are you sorry? Because you realized I'm not who you thought I was?" He flinched, the truth of her words cutting deeper than he expected. "Yes," he admitted, his voice thick. "I judged you. I saw you as nothing more than someone who didn't fit the mold of my world. I was wrong. I didn't see your worth then, but I see it now." She looked at him for a moment, her gaze steady and unwavering. The room around them felt distant, the noise of the event fading as they stood there, caught in their own moment. And then to his astonishment, she gave him a faint but sincere smile. It wasn't filled with the bitterness or anger he had expected. It was almost kind. "You're not the first person to judge me based on how I look or where I come from," she said quietly. "I've spent my whole life proving that people like me, people who've struggled, can rise above. But even more than that, I've learned that people like you sometimes need to learn the hardest lessons before they realize how much they've taken for granted." The man swallowed hard, unable to find the words to respond. There was a depth to her that he hadn't recognized before, a quiet strength that spoke volumes. She continued, her tone more thoughtful now, "But I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm here to offer people like you a chance to change. You're not defined by your past actions. What matters now is how you choose to move forward." Her words hit him like a wave, the weight of them pressing down on him, but also offering something unexpected, a glimmer of hope. "I don't expect anything from you," she added, her smile softening. "But I do hope you'll remember this moment. Remember that there's always a chance for growth, no matter where you start." He nodded, feeling a mix of awe and humility. "I will," he said, his voice steady now, though filled with a raw honesty he hadn't known he had in him. "I'll never forget it." With that, she gave him a small nod and turned to walk back to her group, leaving him standing there, awash in the magnitude of what had just transpired. The man felt something shift within him, something deeper than mere regret. He realized, standing in that room full of people, that the woman he had once dismissed had taught him more in those few moments than he could have ever imagined. And for the first time, he understood. True success wasn't about wealth or status. It was about resilience, compassion, and the ability to see people for who they truly were. As he watched her walk away, he knew he would never again make the mistake of judging someone by their appearance. And he was determined to find his own path to growth, just as she had found hers. Weeks passed since the charity event, and the man couldn't shake the conversation he'd had with the woman. It replayed in his mind over and over, especially her words about growth and change. He couldn't stop thinking about what she had said, not just about how he had treated her, but about how he had treated the world around him. He realized now how much he had overlooked, how much he had dismissed without giving people a chance. There was a shift in him, something profound. He started to look at his employees differently, with more empathy, more understanding. He made an effort to listen to them, to ask about their lives, their challenges, and their dreams. He even began volunteering at shelters, spending his weekends helping those who, like her, had once been invisible to him. The more time he spent with people who had faced hardship, the more he understood the weight of his past actions. One evening, as he was walking through the shelter after finishing his shift, his phone buzzed. It was a notification from a news app, with a headline that caught his eye. "Sequoia Clothing expands to global markets, founder reveals new campaign to empower the underprivileged." He clicked on the article, reading eagerly as the words painted a picture of the woman's incredible rise. Sequoia Clothing had gone global, reaching markets he never thought possible. And the new campaign? It was dedicated to providing job opportunities for those who had been overlooked by society, the homeless, the struggling, the ones who had been cast aside just like she had been. The story went on to highlight how she had made it her mission to help others find their own paths to success, just as she had. The man sat back, a deep sense of admiration filling him. He thought about how far she had come, how she had turned every hardship into fuel for her fire. And in a way, he felt part of that fire now. His journey had only just begun, but he was determined to walk it with humility and purpose. But there was one thing left undone, one more thing that needed to be addressed before he could truly begin moving forward in his own transformation. He knew what it was, the apology he still owed. He couldn't rest until he made it right. Several months later, the man found himself standing outside the headquarters of Sequoia Clothing. The building was a beautiful blend of modern design and eco-friendly materials, a true reflection of the brand that had been built from the ground up. He felt nervous, almost out of place, but he had come this far. He had to do this. He walked inside, his heart racing, and approached the receptionist. "I'm here to speak with the founder of Sequoia Clothing," he said, his voice steady but firm. The receptionist gave him a polite smile but raised an eyebrow. "Are you scheduled for an appointment?" she asked. "No," he replied. "But it's important. He stopped himself. How could he even begin to explain this? Before he could say more, a voice called out from across the lobby. "Is there a problem, Caroline?" The receptionist looked up, and the man turned to see the woman walking toward him. She was dressed in a sleek, professional outfit, her confident stride a reminder of everything she had accomplished. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly as she recognized him. "I know," he said quietly, "but I needed to speak with you. I owe you more than just an apology. I owe you gratitude for everything you taught me, even when I didn't deserve it." She didn't immediately respond, her gaze studying him. But after a moment, her expression softened. "I've heard you've been doing good work lately, volunteering, helping others. I'm glad to see the change." "I'm trying," he said. "But I know I can never undo the past. What I did to you, it was unforgivable, and I've carried that guilt with me every day. I don't expect anything from you, but I wanted to say it to your face. I'm sorry, and I will keep working to be a better person because of you." She looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then, without warning, she reached out and placed her hand on his arm. "It's not about what you did before," she said softly. "It's about what you choose to do now, and I see the effort you're putting in. That's what matters." The man felt a wave of emotion rise up in him, relief, gratitude, and a deep sense of peace. The apology had been long overdue, but now that it had been said, he could finally begin to move forward. And with that, she gave him a smile that was warm but still distant, as if she knew they had both moved on. She turned to leave, but before she did, she glanced back at him and said, "We're all just people, trying to do our best. Keep going." As he stood there, watching her walk away, he realized that he had learned more than he ever could have imagined. His journey had been filled with mistakes and regrets, but it had also been filled with growth. And that was something no amount of money or status could ever give him. True understanding, the kind that only comes when you stop looking down on others and start seeing them for who they really are. Thank you so much for joining us on this emotional journey. If you enjoyed this story and found it meaningful, please consider giving it a thumbs up and sharing it with others who might need a little inspiration. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What did you take away from this story? Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing, heartwarming stories and hit the bell so you never miss an update. Your support means the world to us. Let's keep spreading kindness and growth together. Until next time.